Hello and welcome to the Animal Enrichment Workshop. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build your own Holy Log puzzle feeder, explaining how it all works and then why I absolutely love it for a range of different species, engaging those clever, curious little minds. So let's get into it. Alright, so to start us off for this project, obviously the main piece we need is half a log. So I'm using a miter saw at the moment in a pretty dodgy manner. So because my log is too long, I need to cut with the miter saw. It doesn't go all the way through, and then I need to turn the piece of log and then cut again. Another way of doing things is using an axe or a hatchet to cut your logs in half. Now you can see underside of the log is pretty rough, but unless it's really sharp, it doesn't matter too much. So to get away with little splintery bits, just using a disc sander as I'm doing at the moment, or you can use by hand use a piece of sandpaper, and then that's going to give you the results that you want. As long as it's safe, it doesn't have to look great unless you want it to. Now I'm just making this look really nice and clean. I don't actually need to take off as much as I am doing, but you can use a handsaw for cutting your piece of log. It just depends on the tools you have and the size of the log you're using as well. So once you've done that, you get your spade bits, which you can purchase from hardware stores. These create a really big or small big hole depending on what size you want. This is the size I want. I go down a few centimeters, or quite a bit of centimeters actually, just to get a nice deep enough hole that the food can go in, and then the plug can sit on top and it's not going to protrude too much out of the actual hole of the log. So depending on what your goals are with the piece, that depends on the amount of holes you're doing and the size of the holes you're doing as well. So to give it a real natural look and to keep costs down, I've used a branch here that I've cut off into little rounds, and then with a drill I've created a little hole, as you can see, which is where my string's going to go. So if I was to get a branch that was the perfect size, that would be ideal, and you can look around for what you need, but at the moment I'm just sanding the little pieces down until they fit, as you can see here. And again, depending on what you want, you can fit them so they fit snugly and have to be pulled out, or you can fit them so they're loose in there and they can just fall out and they're a lot easier to work with. And that just increases or decreases the difficulty. So finally, tying off the little rounds tying off the string for the rounds, and then cutting the ends off, burning them back, melting them so they're not going to be frayed or be an safety issue for any animals that are going to be using it. So depending on how long you want your string, obviously tie your knot where you want it to go. I use little bits of string because I don't want it to push down again too close towards the food or protrude too much. I want a nice little clean piece of string that can be a little tab to pull the plug out, and that's good enough for me. Excellent, and now back with the finished product. So this is a relatively easy one to build. It looks a bit more complex, but otherwise it doesn't require too many power tools. You can use a lot of hand tools. The only stuff you'd really need is for drilling the big holes or drilling the smaller holes and the larger holes in the piece of wood, but otherwise you can generally get away with using less intense tools. But anyway, a couple of things to think about when you're building this is obviously the size of the rounds that you're using. You don't want your animals to be able to swallow or choke on these. So using bigger rounds than the species you would be working with, they're capable of eating. And then also thinking about what type of twine or string you're using as well. So here I've used starter cable that I've purchased from a hardware store, very strong and durable. And I'm going to be observing the animals when they're using it or giving it to them, and I know that they're not strong enough to pull this apart, particularly species like Australian ravens, magpies, pheasant kukul, kestrels even. They would be able to pick, but they're not strong enough. If you're using it for stronger species and they potentially could eat this, maybe if you're using it for parrots and that kind of thing, you want to be very careful about this, because parrots obviously very curious at pulling things apart and eating things. Now, if you are using it for species that might ingest it, obviously going for more natural stuff that if they do ingest it, it's not going to be as damaging to their system, or observing them the whole time. So stuff like jute or twine, and potentially even using paper string every time, just restringing them and keeping the rounds. If they chew up the rounds, you can easily get new ones because they're just sticks and branches. So paper twine might be the way to go for you. But otherwise, remembering to use safe wood as well if you're using it for species that might rip apart the wood, like parrots and that kind of thing as well. But it's excellent. I absolutely love it. Obviously, you can use it just like this, when you get species like Australian ravens that I've worked with, they're very smart. They pull it apart very quickly and get to it. You can then put little parcels in there with the food, wrap it around newspaper, put it in, and potentially even then wrap it again in newspaper or put it in a box, just increasing the difficulty that way. But starting out like this until the species gets the hang of things and knows what they're doing. So yeah, difficulty can increase, which is fantastic. It's something that can move and be versatile with how intense or less intense that you want it to be for the species you're working with. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate the interest in the videos. Happy enriching, and until next time, goodbye.